And now, live from Smoke on the Water in Greenville's West End, here is Straight Up with Sturge with Mark Sturgis.
Welcome back in, 7:26 on this Thursday night edition of Straight Up with Sturge, coming to you live from Smoke on the Water. Mark Sturgis, Will Vandervoort, Ramona Ellison back at the station, keeping us up and out of trouble. And let's go to the guest line. Bring on the legendary voice of the Ohio State Buckeyes, Mr. Paul Keels. Paul, how are we doing tonight? And thank you for your time on your off day.
Good, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, I am just sitting here thinking about our conversation we had back in August before the season began. And lo and behold, we are the teams that we cover are going to be meeting down in Miami in less than a month. I just found that very ironic of our conversation up in North Carolina. Lo and behold, we're going to be squaring off here in about 3 weeks.
Well, I think it's a great thing for both schools, and really it's a great thing for Ohio State for, a point in which they thought they were going to be in a national championship game. But to be able to get in the BCS bowl game, and especially against an opponent like Clemson, it's a great thing. And hopefully it's a good thing for both schools and a good thing for the bowl game as well.
Now, Paul, we were talking here in the first segment, so many times in bowl games, it comes down to the team that really wants to be there. What is the mental state of this Buckeye football team after, an awesome comeback from 17-0 against Michigan State to take that 24-17 lead Saturday night, only to see the game get away at the end of the third and fourth quarter? What's the mental makeup of this Ohio State team, having been staring down Pasadena 20 minutes in the face and not being able to finish that task?
Well, I can't begin to sit here and tell you what the makeup of the football team is because we're not around them. After all of that happened, we kind of move on to basketball, to be honest with you. But once they've started practice and they realize it's an opportunity for them to improve as a football team, and especially for a program that didn't have bowl practices a year ago, it will be a good thing. I think they'll really embrace the fact that they're taking on an opponent like Clemson, embrace the fact that they're being in an Orange Bowl game. So that there shouldn't be a problem with all of that. But again, Mark, we're not around them. We don't know. We're in the midst of what's going on with basketball, but it'll be a good thing. They will appreciate the fact from a team that didn't have bowl practice a year ago, they can look at how they can go about improving as a football team, improving as people, improving as personnel. So it'll be a good thing, and they'll be thrilled to have the opportunity to play in a great game like a bowl game and to go against an opponent like Clemson that they'll have a great deal of respect for.
Hey, Paul, this is Will Vandervoort with Clemson Insider. Just wanted to ask you a question. Where were you in 1978? Were you around? Do you remember that game?
I remember that game vividly. I was a college student sitting there at a house party watching the bowl game and watching what happened, and everybody around the country in disbelief about what happened. But I think what we've all kind of come to realize, and 2 years ago when Ohio State went to the Gator Bowl for the first time since that game against Clemson, we've kind of come to grips with how college football and sports has changed about all of that. But that was a life-changing moment for Ohio State, for sports fans here in Ohio, and probably for a lot of Clemson fans, too. There weren't as many bowl games. There wasn't as much going on with, the lack of cable TV and all of that. But it's a great thing that we're going to have an opportunity to see these two schools play in a bowl game against one another. But no, I remember that distinctly. It was a very seminal moment in Ohio high school, in Ohio sports history, really.
The thing that's funny, we talked to Danny Ford yesterday, and we got to speak to him about that game, and obviously it was his first game as a head coach, and that game had a lot of stuff happen before the game itself, which is, Charlie Pell leaving Clemson and Danny Ford becoming the head coach, and the players going to the president saying they wanted Danny Ford to be their coach, and then you get to the game itself, and there was a lot of things that went on, and then at the end, but Danny talked about how a week later at the high school coaches clinic in South Carolina, it just happened to be Woody Hayes was going to be the guest speaker that year. And he talked about how Woody Hayes had a crowd of people come in and give him a standing ovation, as well as, the coaches as well as the coaches give him a standing ovation, but the first thing he did after they gave him a standing ovation is he jumped on all the coaches because they had beards and mustaches, and he told them how ugly it looked and how they don't represent their high schools very well.
Well, and that's unfortunate because one of the great things about Woody Hayes is he had a great appreciation for the sport, and he had a great appreciation for what the sport was like here in the state of Ohio. Woody Hayes, his exit after that game was a very unfortunate chapter to everything that he had done as a football coach and as an administrator. He was a guy that really was big on the promotion of players and assistant coaches. When you think about a guy like Bo Schembechler and Bill Mallory and all of the people that came through the ranks in the state of Ohio as high school players and high school coaches and all of that, it was very unfortunate that that happened. But Woody Hayes was the guy that had great appreciation for the sport of football. And, people will talk about Ohio State and Clemson meeting for the first time since then. And Urban Meyer would be one of the first people that would tell you it's great that they're playing. It's a great sign of college football. It's a great sign of the competition. Those type of things, it's unfortunate. And I think, unfortunately, the controversy that surrounded Woody Hayes' exit from Ohio State kind of are tied to all of that. But, for those that are tied to it now, in the present time, it's great that these two schools are playing.
That's right. We're talking with Paul Keels, the legendary and longtime voice of the Ohio State Buckeyes. And, Paul, listen, everybody down here knows about Braxton Miller at quarterback, Carlos Hyde at running back. But give us a couple of players to keep an eye on from that offense that has helped Ohio State average 46.3 points per game this year.
Well, I think you start with the offensive line, not with just individual players, but an offensive line that prior to last year, people thought it might have been a weakness of this football team. But that offensive line really has kind of come together and played as a solid unit. I think when you think about, you mentioned Carlos Hyde, but the receiving group that 2 years ago was maybe a weakness of this football team in September, October, the receiving group really played at a high level that allowed the rushing group to become a very balanced part of this football team. So, and it maybe didn't show in November and even into early December, but it's a football team that, because of what they were able to do as a dual threat team, showed a great deal of balance, and that's what allowed Carlos Hyde and Braxton Miller to run the football the way they did. So the offensive line deserves an awful lot of credit, but that wide receiving group that improved so much from a year ago has a lot to do with that as well.
Paul, I guess a major concern on the other side of the football would be the defense. Obviously, the last couple of weeks, that secondary has been really exposed. Haven't been getting much pressure at all on the quarterback. I know as you look at this Clemson team, and I know you just started breaking it down and probably analyzing it, that's got to be a major concern with Taj Boyd and those wide receivers. If Boyd's allowed to have that kind of time, he could really do some damage, right?
Well, without question, that's a great group of football players that Clemson has when you think about Taj Boyd and the receivers and all of that. But this is an Ohio State defense that on their defensive line, maybe coming into this year, the defensive line was maybe the biggest question about this football team, and maybe is a little lost with losing the game against Michigan State, how well this defensive line is played. The linebacking group is not what you typically see with Ohio State because of scholarship limitations and medical injuries and people that have been ruled out of it. And the secondary has been a little bit of a risk-reward type of group. But it's a group that I think that can play at a high level, a group that when you think about the Michigan game, they gave up a lot of yards, but the defensive line could be disruptive. They didn't show that in the Michigan State game, that they could be as disruptive as they needed to be. But it's a defense that has the ability to make big plays. So that's the part that intrigues everybody about this bowl matchup. They've given up yards, they've given up points, but they've been able to make plays that they've needed to. When you think about the Michigan game, when Michigan decided to go for 2 points at the end of the game, they made the play that they needed to. Maybe they weren't able to do what they need to do with giving up the yards. But it's a group that's got a lot to live for, and that's the part that I think that excites people about this matchup.
And Paul, I don't think, first of all, I apologize. I meant to have my producer playing Hang On Sloopy as we were coming back from break, because a lot of people don't know that's actually the official rock and roll song of the state of Ohio. I learned that when y'all came down to Knoxville for the Sweet 16 about a decade ago, and we hung out with Ohio State fans. But
you tickled Paul on that one, too.
Hey, listen, I mean, we're out there. I can do the old OHIO thing with Hang On Sloopy. What a great song. But, you mentioned about some of the issues with that defense, but then you look at Ryan Shazier, 134 tackles, and Noah Spence, what he's been able to do with tackles for loss and sacks. And that's been, while the last two games against Michigan and Michigan State were rough, I think that Ohio State defense performed pretty well throughout the year, only giving up a little over 100 yards rushing per game.
Well, I think some of their numbers got a little sideways with how well they played non-conference opponents and some of the Big Ten teams that maybe were better on offense and a little lacking on defense. But, it's a group that's been able to make the plays when they needed to. So, they're really excited about being in this bowl game and having an opportunity to go against a real good opponent. So, at some point in time, you have to kind of let the statistics get out of your head and just look at the fact that it could be a really good football game. And this is a defense that has made plays when they've needed to, even against some of the perceived less than desirable opponents in the Big Ten. Indiana, Purdue, Illinois. They've been able to make the plays when they've needed to. So you've got guys on the back end that can make good plays. When you think about a guy like Bradley Roby, you think about, even though Christian Bryant has been hurt, but C.J. Barnett, who's been a stellar performance in the safety spot. So and a defensive line that's really been able to be disruptive. So it's a group that maybe has given up a lot, but when it's been time to make plays, they've been able to do that.
Well, Paul, thank you for your time tonight. I don't know if you caught this one, but you may want to make it over to the Fountain Blue on New Year's Eve. That's Clemson's hotel for the week, because it's going to be a circus there, as I hear Miley Cyrus has booked the Fountain Blue in South Beach for her New Year's Eve party. So why don't we join up for an adult beverage at the Fountain Blue for Miley?
I can tell Paul probably loves Miley Cyrus.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
So
we'll figure out.
It's going to be at Purdue New Year's Eve for basketball.
Oh,
we won't
man.
be down there till New Year's Day. So you guys enjoy it and let me know about it.
I tell you what. Well, listen, we will track you down there for an adult beverage. Thank you for your time tonight. You are absolutely fantastic, and look forward to seeing you down in South Florida.
All right, guys. Have fun. Thanks.
All right. Thank
Thanks,
you
Paul.
very much. Paul Keels, the honest Paul Keels.
I liked it.
I like it. He didn't hold it back that some of Ohio State's numbers
were inflated.
from earlier in the year, and he didn't hold it back that defense struggled the last two games coming down the stretch. And that, I'll be honest with you, Will. When you have the chance to meet somebody like that outside, this wasn't calling up the SID at Ohio State.
Hey, can you arrange this for me?
Can you arrange this for it? One of the wildest nights of my life was up in North Carolina this summer with Paul Kills and Gene Deckerhoff.
Okay, and being that I've had some nights with you, I'd imagine that was pretty wild.
I mean, it got so bad that Deckerhoff, my wife's cousin, is a Florida State fan. Never went to school there. Grew up in a family of South Carolina fans. Could not stand them. Chose Florida State when he was like 7 years old, and is the biggest Florida State fan that I've ever met. Matter of fact, he called in. You remember we talked to him before the Florida State game. We got into a couple of beverages in the hospitality suite. Deckerhoff goes, "Sturge, give me your phone." And he picks up my phone, and he calls my cousin in Graniteville, South Carolina. Dummy doesn't pick up his phone, but Deckerhoff leaves a message into Chris's voicemail that says, "Chris McGee lined up out in the flats. Jameis Winston drops back to the pass, hits McGee, turns it upfield. Touchdown, Florida State. Touchdown, Chris McGee." And he calls me like an hour later going, "Dude, that's the coolest thing ever." My cousin caught the first touchdown pass from Jameis Winston, according to Gene Deckerhoff.
That's true. That's right. I didn't think about that. And he was already predicting how great Winston was going to be.
This is what we get into about 1 o'clock in the morning up in North Carolina in the hospitality suite with Paul Kills and Gene Deckerhoff.
Deckerhoff has got a great voice. Anybody that hasn't listened to Tampa Bay Buccaneers or or Florida State
or
football.
Madden football from back in the day.
Yeah, his voice is just unbelievable.
Yep.
It's like it's from another planet or something, or it's like he's speaking to you like he's from the heavens.
So don't think it's above Sturge and some of these voices late night up in North Carolina. Start making prank calls. We'll do it to you this year.
I'll make sure my phone is off.
Hi, Will. This is Mike Tomlin from Pittsburgh.
Now that would be awesome, though. I'll make sure my phone's on for that one.
All right. Before we get out to break, we need to tell you about our good friends over at Rogers Outdoor Equipment. Man, they got stuff going on right now. Still chainsaws starting as low as $179.95. Leaf blowers at $149.95. Listen, guys, the new Kubota the new Kubota RTV utility vehicles are in. They are awesome. There is a reason that Kubota's diesel utility vehicle has been named the top RTV in the country for 10 years running. They've got one in the showroom. It looks like a Hummer. It is unbelievable. Now, if you've been thinking about purchasing a tractor, there will not be a better time in the history of this country to purchase a new tractor. Why? They've gotten the pricing in on the 2014 models, and they're going up as much as $3,000 per model from 2013 to 2014. Why? Government emission regulations are now involved. You get DC involved in stuff, the price is going up. Well, Berkeley went out and got his hands on every single 2013 model that he can. They're brand new, 0% financing on them for 60 months on all tractors, and you will never, ever be able to purchase a tractor for a better price than you can right now. It will, once those 2013 models are gone, new tractors will go up through the roof. So head by Rogers Outdoor Equipment. Let Berkeley King and his staff show you what they have going on. They have a certified service department. If you've got something down, bring it to them. They're the absolute best. They're located at the intersection of Highway 8 and 81 in Piedmont. Just go to I-85 to exit number 32. Go 1.5 miles west, and you will run in to Rogers Outdoor Equipment, the Upstate's ultimate power equipment dealer. Off the break we go at 7:43 on this Thursday night edition of Straight Up with Sturge, coming to you live from Smoke on the Water. We are WCCP Talk Sports 104.9 FM, the flagship station of Clemson Athletics.